Welcome to Style Masterclass, the podcast that teaches women to look stylish and feel confident so that they can show up ready to conquer and slay no matter what size they are. I'm your host, Miss J. You ready?
Hello. Welcome back to the Style Masterclass podcast. This is so fun because right before I hit record, my guest and I are both like, sing-songing. So you missed that magic, but I had to talk about it when we first started. I'm actually really excited to bring today's guest to you. She and I have had such fun conversations. They've been so jam-packed full of gems, and I wanted to definitely have her on the podcast to talk about intention and having homes that you build with intention and having an intentional home. She wrote a book on it. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to dive in and get you all kinds of juicy goodness, but you have to hear her story because it's incredible. Even what she's doing right now is really incredible. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Please introduce yourself, and then we will get in.
Thanks, Miss J. Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. I'm Carly Thornock. Let's see. I'm a mom of three. I ride the fine line between witch escape from Azkaban and romantic curly hair kind of woman. Usually it's the former. And I love to design homes. But really, I don't like interior design, which is the funniest part of it all. I do love creating beautiful things, but I like people connecting in really awesome spaces. And so my mojo, my jam is to tell stories with our interiors. And I like talking to you because you tell stories with what we wear. So it's kind of this environmental psychology meets Joanna Gaines kind of side eye, but it's really fun. And then that's what I do.
That's the best description ever. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey because you are technically nomad. You live in an RV and you talk to people about how to design intentional homes. So like, how? Tell us all the things. How'd you end up on that journey?
Well, okay. It started back in college and I wanted to be an interior designer architect. Like I just love houses, all the things. So I went down that path, but then I got this great scholarship to a school that had no program. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I found myself in the School of Family Life class, like Introduction to Families. And I was like, I'm going to have a family hopefully one day. So here I am. And I fell in love with it, like marriage research, parenting, child development, geriatrics, all of it. And I was like, well, how can I bring houses into this? What do we know about houses? So I'd corner my professors and be like, hey, what do we know about how houses affect families? You can tell me how hospitals affect patients. You can tell me how prisons affect inmates. You can tell me how schools affect learning, but how do houses affect families? And they're like, we've never even thought about that. I don't know. So I went on to get my graduate degree in marriage and family. And I convinced my professor, who's a shyness emerging adulthood specialist, that houses have to do something with shyness. But I don't know what I did. That was just an answer to prayer. He's like, sure, you can study under me. So we ran a bunch of studies about how sensory reactive, sometimes shy kids, the kids who tags bother them and lights and sounds, they're a little bit high sensitive, right? How they develop and what their houses look like. So we mashed together our research preferences. And then I went on my journey to bring this to the people because while I love academia and I love publishing peer-reviewed research, I like moms having more tools so that they don't feel stressed out by their house, so they can take ownership of what's around them, so they can love their people better. So yeah, my husband and I decided to go on the road. He actually was very sick for a really long time with Crohn's disease. And when he recovered, we felt like we had a new lease on life. And so we thought, like, how do we want to retire? What's this all about? What are we waiting for? And he wanted to fish and I wanted to read and we wanted to take lots of hikes and see the national parks. And so we're like, let's do it now. So we both own our own coaching practices and we have 3 little ones and live in our RV and go explore.
Oh my gosh. Okay, y'all, I'm obsessed with people who are like, here's this thing I love. Here's this other thing I love. I'm going to make a cool idea, baby. And then go help the other folks with my cool idea, baby. And like living embodiment of that. I'm obsessed. Okay. So it's so interesting because you technically live in a tiny house on wheels.
Yep.
So what was that process like? Because you have children and a husband, like you all live in the tiny house on wheels. Like what was that process like? Maybe moving from one space to that space? Because I think a lot of people, I think that might be the daunting part. Like maybe they have the romantic notion of traveling in this way, but that becomes a hurdle. I have all this stuff, so to speak.
Yes.
Tell us about that transition and maybe how to make it easier.
It was easy for me because I didn't make myself throw away or give away or sell or whatever, any of my stuff. I just boxed it up. Like I took out my 3 favorite spatulas, my 7 favorite shirts, and my kids each have a drawer, and that's what we've got. So I just like picked the stuff that made sense. If like I was packing for a month-long trip somewhere, right? Where we got to find laundry. We each have 5 to 10 shirts. We have 5 to 10 pants. I've got my kitchen with all the basic necessities, only the stuff we use every day. If it's like the random thing that I only use once a year, there's no way. Like I just couldn't take it, but I boxed it up. So I was like, oh, good. Yeah, we'll just come when this Thanksgiving, we'll come back. And we didn't plan to go for a long time either. At first we were like, we're just going to go for a month. So we went for a month and did like the Redwood Forest and Bend, Oregon. And then we came back and hung out with my parents for a little while. Didn't open any of our boxes. Then we went on the road again and did a big Texas loop and spent 2 months living on the beach in Corpus Christi and like all these things. Oh, I shouldn't say that. 30-day limit at Corpus Christi, just so we all know. Not 2 months.
Wink, nudge, nudge. Wait,
you got to travel down. Yeah. So it kind of was a gradual evolution. But what I found was I don't miss what I packed. So I still have a shipping container actually full of stuff that Chase and I are always like, we got to torch that. Like, what do we need a lawnmower for? But that's what made it easier for us to get on the road was like, this seems scary, but it's just going to be for a minute. And if we don't like it, we don't have to live this way. We're just going to adventure and see. Today, this is a yes. So that made it a little bit easier. I'd recommend everybody doing that, especially if you're cleaning out closets you'll have to tell me what your teachings are. But when we're cleaning stuff out, sometimes it's easier to just be like, I'm keeping the stuff that's a 100% yes. And anything that's not a 100% yes goes in this box. But I'm not going to stress and do all the dirty pain and drama about what needs to happen with it and break up with it and sell it and move on and cry in tears. It's like, no, it's just going in the attic. I'll talk about that in 3 months.
I love this. And I think we have a similar philosophy because for a lot of my clients, my first thing for them is if it really creates a lot of turmoil and like heartache, just remove it from your line of sight.
Yes.
Like if it doesn't fit you, I'm not going to pry it from your hands. Like I'm not into that. I'm not like, that's not how we roll, but let's put it in a box. Let's set a deadline, a timer. You can even email yourself or set a reminder on your phone or however you need to do it. So you can revisit the discussion when you've had some time and distance from the object and you're not seeing it every single day. And it's so interesting because I used to give that advice, like, and that was like the best sounded advice. But I also had a client this round of Style Masterclass, and she pushed back, and it was the most lovely, enriching thing for me as a coach, because she's like, that's kind of a cop-out. Like I went into this to clean this out, to do this once and for all. And one thing I learned from her, because I always love learning a little bit from my own clients and coaching them, was just like, and I want you all listeners, you will know when you're ready to do either one. If you come to me and you're like, the point of this was to do this thing, I want you to help me do the clean out, then let's do that. Some of you are not there yet. My goal is to just get it out of your line of sight so you can make the decision down the road more informed with less frustration without your nervous system being all wrinkled. So I love that, Carly. You guys were just like, hold on. Decision to go is the primary one. The goal is to get the hell on the road. Pardon me. I know you don't curse, but like to get on the road and then like, you'll revisit it later. And there was no, like, I just love the peace that you gave yourself to do that.
And it made it easy. Like you're saying, what felt good to do made the rest of it come easier because there have been very big clean outs of our life since then. And it's not as hard because it's clear. And I can always say, I can revisit that later. But when my nervous system isn't all in a funk, then I can say, oh, yeah, I really don't need that. It's easier versus trying to fight the nervous system. Never a good idea.
Yeah. I love that you said your 3 favorite spatulas, because I actually want to talk to you about this. This is a thing. Like adult humans are weirdos. Like we have a favorite spatula. We have a favorite burner on our stoves, all of us, right? Like, but we have weird things that we get attached to. So tell me a little bit about like, what is the process like that you would walk somebody through who maybe is going through a clean out, who is going to go live some adventure? What are sort of the questions we could ask ourselves to find our 3 favorite spatulas? I like that as an analogy.
I think I do it backwards from like the minimalists, because they would say like 33 outfits for 3 months, the 3 and whatever, like there's rules. But the way I think about it is, how long can you go without doing your dishes and feel great? For me, It's a day. If I don't have enough forks to get me through one day without doing my dishes, I'm bugged because I don't want to do my dishes till nighttime. So that was like the point where it cut off, where I don't need 75 forks, but I do need 10 forks. So it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 14 so that my children can take them and dig stuff out of the dirt, which they do. And I won't be mad at them either. So we're giving a little buffer. But I call these your essentials. And they're the things that you're not going to say, I could survive on. Like I could survive with 2 forks and I could just pass them around my family and we could wash them in between a dinner. Like if push came to shove, I could only need 2 forks. But what feels great? Like what feels essential? What's a really good fit for me? And that essential number is this non-definable enough where it feels like home. So if for you, you need 10 spatulas, take 10 spatulas, but also hold in that same, like I call it a bowl of wantings, like put in your same bowl of wantings. I want to be on the road and live small. And I also want 10 spatulas. And usually as they start to interact and percolate and live with each other and grow, it becomes more refined. Like 10 spatulas, I do love these 10, but I think 2 is enough. And sometimes all we need is just that time of observing and loving and seeing and swooshing around like tea leaves or something, right? Like you just need to be able to hold yourself to see what emerges instead of being like, what are the rules? How do I decide? What needs to go? How do I feel about it? It just can be a little bit more organic.
Oh, I love this. Okay. Because there's so many little nuggets I want to pull from there. But there's one thing that you said that I think is so interesting, because I think sometimes even in like minimalism culture or these like very curated spaces, there's this idea that like there are rules. Here are the rules. And it doesn't take into account how we actually live our lives. Right? There's these rules of style and dressing where you have to have like, and I love this, you have a white button-up shirt. And I had a client who like worked with horses on a ranch. She's like, so that doesn't really make sense. I'm like, why would you buy a white button-up shirt? You're gonna be covered in shit all day. Like that doesn't make
no way.
There's no way. It doesn't make any sense, right? Like newly nursing moms whose breasts are busting forth with milk at inopportune moments. We're not going to buy you a crisp white t-shirt. That makes no sense, right? But like, I love talking about that. And I feel like you touched on that. And I want to kind of draw that out a little bit more because it goes back to the whole intentional home thing, which was like, I feel like thematically is like kind of a thread and a theme for you. How do we like dismantle the house rules? Because there's always the house rules, just like there's clothing rules.
Oh yeah.
To get to that place where we're like that beautiful space, right? That bowl of wanting that you talked about. Like elaborate on that. I think I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here. So when I'm teaching my clients, they want the rules and they always are like, Carly, just tell me what to do. And the second you say, Carly, tell me what to do, like any good coach, I'm like, you want me to tell you what to do? Now tell me about that, right? Like, tell me about why you want the right answer, right? Yeah. Like, tell me what this is. And we can go through and identify like, oh, I had a client who her mom would never leave the house unless it was put together clean. And that meant dishes done, dishwasher started, floors swept, counters mopped, everybody's hair combed. Here we go. And so she, with 3 little tiny babies, is learning how to get her first off to preschool in the morning. And we just had to learn like, this is awesome that your mom did that, but that actually isn't how you get out the door. How you get out the door is you open the door and you step out the door. So what do you love? Like what feels good to you to do? What's a gift to yourself while you prioritize your most important thing, your children? She's like, I want to be a present mom, but I'm wigging out because the dishwasher. So for her, it was to get my kids out the door and being a calm mom. That's what I want most of all. And my house supports me in doing that, but it will not distract from it. So that's where the house interacts and plays, because the rules of our house are often we're beating ourselves up with them. Just like we do the rules of style where we're like, I can't have fun at the party because my belt doesn't match my shoes or whatever. It's the same sort of thing. I can't enjoy my people because it's Tuesday and I still haven't dusted the blinds. When we give up the rules, we have so much more room for what we actually want. One rule that I really love busting is this wash your sheets rule that a lot of people have of I have to wash my sheets every week, or I should be washing my sheets every week. I don't wash my sheets every week. I live in a camper. It's like bunk beds for every single person in my house. I'm like, no, unless we've been in a particularly muddy place. And also I work at a laundromats. So when I can, I wash my sheets, but to let go of this idea that I'm a good person if my sheets are washed every single Friday morning, it has brought me so much joy. So I call this joyful rule making, changing of the rules, your bowl of wantings. And this is where you just put all these things that you want the most. Like I want to feel safe and happy in my bed at night. I want clean sheets. I want to know that I'm taking care of myself and my family. And those are the things that we put in our bowl of wantings. But anything that feels horrible and judgy, we don't put in there. I shoulds are not allowed in your bowl of wantings. Mom says not in the bowl of wantings. What would the neighbors say out of the bowl of wantings? It's just what I want. And then usually as they interact, and I envision them as like little marbles that kind of like bump against each other and glow different depending on how the sun is shining. How they interact with one another usually produces your outcome. So for me, I want to be on the road with my family more than I want crisp sheets tucked in military style. So as they play together, I like a clean bed. I like clean sheets. I want to explore. It settles. And I do my sheets when I can. And then the dirty pain is the part that I can let go of, or I don't beat myself up about it anymore. Did that answer your question? Maybe that was very tangential.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. That's a great example is the sheets. And like, we all have our proverbial rule for something, right? Like whether it's, and I've seen all kinds of interesting things, right? Women who have so much stuff, like so much clothing items, and then the rules get created around them. Well, I only technically wear this, but I'm saving it for this. And then that outfit is only earmarked for this thing when the stars, the moon and sun align. And it's like, or if you like it, you could just wear it whenever you want. Like, how do you want to show up every day? And like letting yourself have room to play and just giving yourself space to breathe. Oh, I love this. I want to ask you a little bit about your book, because you did write a book about intentional, and it's month by month. So tell us a little bit about the book and like give us some little snippets, because I think it's just in line with the conversation we're having.
Yeah. So this book is called The Intentional House by Month, and it's helping families connect seasonally over what's going on in your home. So we talk a lot about traditions. We talk a lot about holidays. We talk a lot about bringing nature into your space. And my purpose with this book, it was written for the super busy mom who's like, I can't sit down and reevaluate my life, but I have 3 minutes right before I shut my eyes at bed. So it's little paragraph nuggets where it's like, think about the world from your kid's point of view. Have you ever gotten down on your knees and seen what a 4-foot-old experiences in your house? Why not? Like, try it. See what it means to live as a child in your house. What would you change? What needs to be adjusted? Do you need to protect your outlet covers, or do you not? Like, where are your kids at? Like, get there physically. And that will help you get there emotionally. And that will help you have a new perspective, just to shift things up. Kids are so fun because, and adults too, this is an adult trick. So whenever we clean out a room, they want to do cartwheels in it. And we're like, you just had a room full of toys and I'm just trying to vacuum it. And now you think this is the funnest thing ever because there's nothing in it. Why do I even give you toys, right? But adults are the same way. When we clear things out, both in our spaces or in our mental world, when we have a new perspective, it feels like play again. So when we can get a fresh perspective on our seasons and on our Christmas traditions or on our Valentine's Day dates or whatever it is, we can see it again and it feels like fun. That's a fun tool to get under our own radar, add some fancy back into our life. So the book takes us through this every month, being like, it's January. Is it cold where you live or is it summer? What do you love about January? I feel like it's the doldrums. What's fun about doldrums? Let's talk about it. So that's kind of that kind of thing. And I love talking with women about that specifically.
There was a podcast, and I can't remember. So I won't be able to give exact credit to whoever this came from, but someone in a podcast somewhere was like, sit in the corners of your house that you never go to. And I think it's similar to the idea of like, get to the level of like someone who's 4 feet tall and look around and you'll see things from a very different perspective. And I remember listening to that podcast, and there were little corners of my house I'd never sat in. And it was just like, I'm going to try this. And I like to go for walks in my house. I'm not a big nature person. If anyone knows me, they find that hilarious. Like, I love to look outside my windows at the beautiful like view in my backyard. But do I want to go in my backyard? No, I have no desire to go in my backyard. So I go for walks in my house. It's just something I do. To each their own. I love
it. I'm all on board. I love this idea.
For those of you who like to go to national parks, more power to you. I love that you love that. I love that for you. It's seriously not my thing. This is a total aside. I went to the Muir Woods in Northern California. It's beautiful, like giant trees. I don't remember the kinds of trees.
Like redwoods and
redwoods and these giant like sequoias. It was gorgeous. I was wearing ballet flats and a cute little sundress and a cute little cardigan. And I looked so cute and totally out of place with all these people's like serious backpacks, right? And they're like their serious gear. And I'm just like looking like a pretty princess. So like, it's not my thing. Anyway, I digress. So
The world's better with you there.
yeah, exactly. And I would love to literally like walk in the little corners that I never walk in. Like to stand in like little weird spots in my house because I'm like walking through my house. I have such a better appreciation for my home. A, going for walks through my house, but B, like getting in those spots that I normally don't get in and getting at a level or walking through it and just like experiencing it very differently. Like I pay for every square foot, might as well like soak up the goodness of every little square foot that I am paying California prices for. Like might as well, right? So I think I want to just encourage you all to maybe drop a level, right? Kind of look around like a childhood, even for you, those of you who are kid free, we still all benefit from play and being a little more childlike sometimes. So I think dropping a level and looking around, walking around your house, going for a walk, sitting in corners you never sat in, so you get a new perspective. And there's a scripture I love, and the message version of it is to be the proud owner of everything you already possess. And I just think that's so beautiful. And even if you're not religious, I think that quote is just still really a good quote. And we can all do a little bit more of that. Certainly.
The proud owner. That's amazing. Because a lot goes into owning things, whether it be clothes or whether it be massage recliners made for relaxing.
She's pointing behind her audio listeners.
Audio listeners. I'm in an assisted living right now that we bought and we're renovating. So we're putting together all the recliners right now and enjoying the fruits of our labor. But when you're the proud owner of the things that you have, it's a different relationship, right? It's one of stewardship and love and compassion for all the things. You are intentional about it, but it's a grateful intentional. It's worth exploring. I'll add my 2 cents with that. I love what you said.
Yeah, no, it's worth exploring. Like that work is worth doing. And there's no rush too. I think sometimes I can understand the desire to get rid of clutter or to feel overwhelmed or inundated. I get it. I think you and I, right? We both really get it. And what if you slow that process down and enjoyed it? How differently might you approach it if you just slow that train down, like way, way down? There's no rush.
It's all an unfolding, really. It's listening to your body. Like, let's get somatic about it. We can listen when we listen to our bodies and follow what feels good in the best way, like our inner guidance and our deepest, truest loves and wishes, truest loves and wishes. That will guide us. Because often if you sit down with your and I love to do this with my clients. When you sit in the middle of your clutter until your nervous system can regulate in the clutter, you're going to notice the clutter is not that scary. You're going to notice that you actually don't mind a couple of piles because it helps you remember the stuff you need to do. You're going to notice that the choices you have made to prioritize your time elsewhere are actually more important to you. And clutter is just a distraction. So if we can be non-distracted by our clutter, that's where the power comes. And then you can do with your clutter whatever the heck you want. It just depends on, do I want these papers on my horizontal surface of choice or not today? And choose for today.
Okay, so let's talk, because I think this is like the crux of the issue. We think the clutter is the problem. And then we think it has some sort of moral approbation tied to it. Like if I have clutter, I'm a bad person. I'm sloppy, lazy, fill in your adjective, right? But if we're like, okay, no, let's actually normalize the clutter, get used to the clutter, and then we can decide what we want to do about it. It's such a different approach.
And it's scary because there's lots of rules about clutter. There's lots of research. How many times have I heard people be like, the research says that a clean house makes you happier and less anxious. And friends, I wrote the research. I did the research. And yes, there is a correlation between clutter and our anxiety levels. But I'll tell you, when you put something in the middle, this is called a mediating or a moderating factor. When you put something in the middle that explains the end point, this will make more sense in just a second. These relationships that are direct go away. So if I say clutter affects your anxiety, if I say how you think about your clutter and I put how I think about clutter, clutter bugs me, clutter doesn't bug me, this clutter issue drops right away. And we see the only correlation between our home and our experience in the world is what we think about it. So it's all about our perception. If you're internalizing your clutter to be a problem, you're going to have a problem. If you're internalizing your clutter to not be a problem, you're not going to have a problem. So really, you are the power player. You are the kingpin. You are the keystone. You are the thing that makes all the difference. And if you want to abdicate your power to your clutter, you can, but we all know how that goes. It feels out of control. So step in and be the person who decides whether you're going to be distracted or not. And when you own the clutter is subservient to you.
Excuse me, Mike Dropper. I love nerdy women, by the way. And I love that you were like, let me break it down for y'all so you just understand. I thank you for that. Thank you. And every nerdy woman who listens to this podcast is like, yes, okay, I get it now. I get it on a whole new level. So thank you for breaking that down, because like, it's one thing for us to say cliche, quippy things like you get to decide how you think about things, but like you actually just broke that down in a way that like, oh, and this is why how we think about this is so important, because the clutter being the problem falls away. I think the same could be true like of like debt, right?
Yes.
like,
oh, yes.
Yes. You nodded emphatically. So tell me your thoughts on that. Cause I hear some like people treat clutter like they do debt, and it's like all this moral turpitude and anxiety around it. So tell me like what your thoughts are on it.
That's a fascinating analogy. I'd never put them in the same category before, but they're the exact same. My experience is in my family, debt was to be avoided at all costs. And when I found Dave Ramsey, I was like, preach, brother, like, this is great. And so I came into my marriage, like, this is how we do it. We are, every dollar counts. We are accountable, blah, blah, blah. And my husband comes from this family of entrepreneurship where you're starting businesses and you're getting investors and you're figuring out this whole brave new world that I'd never been exposed to before. And he's like, debt is our friend. And it really took a minute by a minute, I mean like a hot 5 years to be like
a minute, 5 years,
perspective. So what I've come to realize is just what you said, that debt is a tool, just like clutter is a tool. I like stuff on my counter sometimes because I got to remember to take that thing back to the place, or I'm never going to return anything in my whole life if it's not right in front of my front door. So you have to use your clutter strategically. You own your clutter. If your clutter gets to the point where you can't remember what Post-it you should be looking at, then maybe you might want to choose, because you love it and it feels good, to de-visually clutter. But if it's serving you, like, live it, do it, use it. This is about you. Like, our stuff serves us. Ever get that flipped around, that's when we run into problems.
Yeah, I love that. My husband has Asperger's, so he has a very different relationship to his stuff than I do. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's like I walk into he has his own room with all his stuff. To me, it's stuff. There's stuff everywhere, but he can tell if I've been in there and if I've touched the stuff. And it's just such a different relationship to the stuff. And he's like, did you touch, like, he'll have watches and tiny little pieces, and like he has them diagrammed out and he's doing whatever it is he's doing. And he's like, did you touch the washers? And I'm like, what? Oh, that little thing I found, I just moved it. He's like, can you not touch this? Because I have it all a very precise way of being laid out. Like, did you need something in my room? Why were you here? I was like, I was looking for a cable for my phone. Like, I sound like an idiot, right? It's just so funny. He's like, next time just ask me because I know exactly where it is. And then you won't have to move anything. I know where all the cables are. And I'm like, okay. And it's just so, like, his relationship to his stuff is just so different from my relationship to his stuff, which
sure. As always with all husbands.
Yeah.
But especially when the threshold is so particular, like they're aware, and they sometimes, and I don't know your husband, you'll have to tell me, but my husband, at least, and a lot of people that I've worked with and studied in academia, when we have a higher threshold of detail orientation, like when we can take in a lot more of information, then it becomes helpful to be able to see it and touch it and experience life in 3D in a whole different way. When we don't notice as much, which is me, a little bit of ADHD coming out. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even see it. And he's like, there are 17 papers in that stack and they're turned counterclockwise by 70 degrees. Like, my husband could tell you all about it. And I'd be like, what stack? So depending on our sensory receptivity or reactiveness, it's so fascinating. And our emotional components, all this that makes our perspective, when we're living with another person, it's a fantastic fireworks show. But I think that's what makes life so rich. And that's what makes spaces so detailed and custom. That's why we can't say 33 pieces for every 3 months, or a minimalist house looks like this with nothing on the counter. Like, why would you ever do that? It takes everything. It's all your personhood out of your space.
Okay. So we'll wrap up with this, but I want to hear there's so much. We're gonna have you back because there's so much. And you're definitely going to be teaching for us, guest teaching in Modern Charm School. I can't wait for them to get all your goodness. I'm so freaking excited. But I do what are three, if we had to give 3 tips, right? Or 3 things, or even just one thing that you think would be really juicy that someone could do today or think about today to put their personhood back in their home, right? Where the people are first and not the rules and all that stuff. Like, tell us what your wisdom is there.
My favorite little hack here is when you find yourself feeling a negative emotion, frustration, overwhelm, annoyance, all those things come up often when it comes to our houses. When you find yourself in a negative emotion, we often will call that triggering, but I want you to reframe it into being like a sparkle. I don't know, a glitter where you're aware, like you become aware something has triggered you or interrupted your regular flow, sparkled you into awareness. When you feel that feeling, note that is a choice point. And when you feel frustrated, it's not going to be as easy as being like, I could not be frustrated right now. But I want you to think to yourself, I get to choose. There's so many dishes. It's so annoying. I get to choose. And sometimes it helps me. I call this the Chinese grandma approach. Maybe it's not politically correct. I mean, no offense. But what I mean by this is someone who lives on the other side of the world, if she were to step into your shoes, what would she say? What would she do? Somebody who's older than you, wiser than you. Would the old Chinese wise grandma come into my house and be like, your dishes are a disgrace? She'd probably be like, where are your kids? What are you working on, Carly? It wouldn't even cross her mind. So this, I get to choose choice point. Tie it to the old wise grandma and ask yourself, how do I want to proceed?
Yeah.
That would be my one takeaway for you. Take back your perspective control.
Yes. Take back your perspective. Okay. So how can we find you? How can we enter into your world to find out more about you, where we can find your book? Tell us all the things. And you have a podcast. Tell us everything.
My podcast is called Becoming Home. So you can find me on all of your favorite podcast platforms. And if you want to listen to a really great episode, look up the one with Judith. It was so good. I have my website, which is carlythornock.com. And if this is interesting to you, you can sign up to receive 100-story house guide. So this helps you infuse your personality through stories in every part of your house. It's a whole how to decorate your house tutorial framework, but it's less about 3 patterns in a stripe and a solid. Here's your color scheme, and more about how to take for instance, your favorite pair of shoes and turn that into a design style for your master bedroom. That's the kind of stuff we do. So you can go pick that up for free on my website if that's fun. My book is on Amazon. It's called Intentional House by Month. And I'm on the Instagrams, Carly Thornock. Come on over. Let's play.
Come hang out with her, getting all the goodness. Thank you so much for coming on today. We'll leave links in the show notes for everyone so you can get all the juicy goodness. Carly, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Bye, everyone. We are out.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. To learn more about how to work with me, go to judithgaton.com. Click on the Start Here button to get access to my free personal style class. I give you a quick style win, a confidence boost, and you walk away with the tools to start getting stylish. Who doesn't love that? See you there. Miss J out.